All right, well, good evening, Crime Crunchies. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It is Wednesday night, February 25th, and I am Courtney C., your host at Crime Crunchies, and you guys are my crunchy, hungry little Crime Crunchies. So thank you so much for joining me here tonight. Please, as always, please subscribe, like, comment, and share, as this is a new channel. And I'm going to be covering something a little bit different. I have been covering the Nancy Guthrie case since the beginning, since February 1st. I just did, I think, day 24 yesterday. And I have been taking a break from that. And I have been watching the Kouri Richins trial on Court TV as usual. And I thought I would go ahead and give that one a try tonight and just kind of go through with you exactly who Kouri Richins is and why is she on trial. Something a little different tonight. So let me put up a picture of Miss Kouri. I don't know if anyone else is watching the trial, but here is Kouri Richins and her husband, Eric Richins, and her little dog and her 3 boys. Of course, they are blurred out. But we're going to dive in a little bit tonight and find out about what Miss Kouri Richins has been up to. Again, we are going to be talking tonight about Kouri Richins. She is a Utah mom, a real estate investor, and self-published children's author, which is actually quite scandalous in itself, for sure. She's accused of unaliving her husband, Eric Richins, and then writing a book about grief for their children after his unaliving. And that's, I think, what's even more outrageous about this. This is the book that she wrote, Are You With Me? And I pulled it up on a site to get the cover photo, and looks like it was independently published. So while she definitely did do a string of interviews locally, looks like she independently published that book. So, not too surprising, but it's really odd that somebody who's on trial for unaliving their husband wrote a book about grief for her children. So it's just kind of got all the layers to it. All right, so we are going to go into some of the details about what brought us here and some of the history. All right, the Richins family lived in a large home in Camas, Utah, a small mountain community about 45 minutes from Salt Lake City. Quiet roads, snow-dusted peaks, the kind of place where doors are rarely locked. That night, Eric Richins, 39 years old, father of 3 boys, had been working late. He owned a stone masonry business, hard labor, early mornings, the kind of job that leaves you exhausted and in pain by the end of the day. According to charging documents, Kouri later told investigators she made her husband a Moscow Mule drink that evening to celebrate the closing of a home that's actually being heavily discussed in this trial, for sure. Sometime during the night, Eric was found unresponsive at the foot of their bed. First responders arrived. They attempted life-saving measures. Eric Richins was pronounced unalive. At first, it appeared natural, a possible heart issue, maybe an aneurysm. He was young, but not unheard of. Until the autopsy came back, Eric had 5 times the lethal amount of fentanyl in his system, not just trace amounts, a massive fatal dose. And suddenly, the quiet mountain valley had a storm. So from the outside, Kouri and Eric looked like a high-functioning, ambitious couple. They had 3 sons, they built homes, they invested in property. Kouri was involved in real estate and home design, but according to court documents, their marriage was strained. Prosecutors alleged there were serious financial disputes. They say Eric had discovered that Kouri had taken out large loans and spent significant amounts of money, allegedly without his knowledge. Investigators claim Eric had changed his will and insurance beneficiaries shortly before his death. Prosecutors argue that he had become suspicious. The defense disputes the narrative of a crumbling marriage and has argued that the state's theory relies heavily on circumstantial evidence. And this tension, this financial undercurrent, becomes central to what prosecutors say happened next. So here's where the case tightens. Investigators allege that weeks before Eric's death, Kouri Richins contacted an acquaintance and asked for something stronger than prescription pain medication. Now, Eric has gone on record, and they're actually discussing this during the trial, that he would take pain medication, narcotic pain medication, would take gummies, CBD gummies. I'm not sure if they're THC gummies, but he did take gummies. And there was supposedly a housekeeper that worked for Kouri that she knew had some contacts with the drug community, and that Kouri had gotten some, I guess, stronger prescription pain medication through the housekeeper. So charging documents claim she obtained fentanyl through this contact, who I think we may hear from in the trial. Prosecutors allege she previously gave Eric a dose that made him violently ill, but not fatal. There's also a story about her going and getting a sandwich at a restaurant and giving Eric the sandwich, and Eric becoming really ill from eating the sandwich and throwing up. And I think that he even told a friend of his that he thought she was trying to unalive him. So the prosecution is actually alleging that she tried multiple times to unalive her husband. Until this night, March 3rd, the Moscow Mule that Kouri gave her husband Eric contained a lethal amount of fentanyl. After Eric's death, investigators traced phone data and financial records. They allege deleted messages. They allege suspicious timing. They allege escalating debt. The defense, however, has maintained that the evidence is being interpreted through a single lens. They have challenged how law enforcement obtained certain digital data and questioned the reliability of witnesses cooperating with police. But the fentanyl remains the medical cause of death, and that fact changed everything. We're going to go into a little bit about some of the testimony and how, while the prosecution is leaning heavily on some circumstantial evidence, there are a lot of things that Kouri did that just don't make sense, and a lot of personal things that are coming out, and even an affair that she had. So the children's book that I'm sharing right now, and this is actually what made it national headlines, because, I mean, she's pretty gutsy. So almost exactly 1 year after Eric's death, Kouri Richins appeared on local television promoting a children's book she had written. The book is titled, Are You With Me? It's about a father who has passed away but remains spiritually present for his child. She said she wrote it to help her sons process grief. It's almost like she wanted to have attention after his death. And I mean, again, independently published. She did this. She reached out to TV stations wanting sympathy. It's really weird. And these are some of the things I'm going to talk about her, and things that I'm picking up watching her in the body cam footage, and also listening to her 911 call. As an empath, things that just don't ring true. So in interviews, she described sudden loss, healing, love beyond death. And at the time, she had not been publicly charged. Then in May 2023, prosecutors arrested her. The optics were explosive. A grieving widow turned author, now charged with unaliving. But again, a charge is not a conviction. The book itself is not evidence of guilt. However, prosecutors argue it is part of the broader timeline of events following Eric's unaliving. So let's look at money, motive, and insurance. According to court filings, Eric had a life insurance policy valued at nearly $2 million. Prosecutors allege Kouri stood to benefit financially. They also allege that she attempted to access funds and manage property transactions rapidly after his death. But financial stress in a marriage is not proof of murder. The defense has argued that couples manage money in complicated ways, that debt alone is not motive. And this is where cases like this become less about what feels suspicious and more about what can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. So after her arrest, prosecutors say Kouri attempted to contact individuals from jail in ways that violated court orders. They allege she attempted to influence testimony. Her defense team has pushed back, arguing that pretrial communications are being portrayed unfairly. But these allegations became part of the state's broader narrative, consciousness of guilt. So the defense strategy is that Kouri Richins has pled not guilty. Her attorneys have argued the case is circumstantial. Key witnesses have credibility issues. Investigators built a financial motive theory and worked backward. There is no direct evidence showing she administered fentanyl. And actually, some of the things that were out before, the trial that really didn't help the prosecution is supposedly one of the witnesses at the prosecution was their star witness, came back and said, hey, during my interview, I was actually really high. The medicine that I gave Kouri didn't have fentanyl in it. It was just like oxycodone or something along those lines. So right now they're in trial, but I want to talk a little bit about some other things that are going on at the time. And I'll put this picture of Kouri back on because she looks like a happy mother, fulfilled in her marriage with Eric. They'd been married for a long time. Supposedly Eric may have been unfaithful to Kouri at one point, but they worked on their marriage and they went to counseling and decided that they were going to work hard and keep it together for their kids' sake. But in the long run, Kouri ended up actually having an affair of her own and was literally planning a vacation to a Caribbean island with her boyfriend, not like literally a month after Eric's unaliving. And so a lot of those things just don't ring true with Kouri. And yes, the prosecution has a lot of circumstantial evidence. Listening to the trial this week on, I'm watching court TV on YouTube, listening to the opening statements by the prosecution, it sounds pretty damning for Kouri Richins. But I have to say that Kouri's attorneys, her defense attorneys, they're coming out. They're actually working hard for her. And, all they have to do is get one juror that has reasonable doubt, and that's it. That's all she wrote. So I wanted to play the 911 call from when the night that that Eric was unalived, because I wanted to break down as an empath some of the things that I see and feel just hearing Kouri's voice. So let's go ahead and listen to this and this 911 call. Okay. I can't even get through this recording because, first of all, I don't know if anyone has had somebody pass away suddenly, but, and everyone responds differently. I get that. Okay. Everyone responds differently, but I'm sorry. I don't even know if that was acting. She sounded like she was 5 years old and that she was lost, just the little mewling. This isn't somebody who's found her husband unalived in bed. And the way that she's talking, and she's barely answering, and she's whispering, and she's just the same tone through the entire conversation. And when you are feeling real pain, it's not just stuck here in your mouth like it's all the way up from the bottom. It takes over your entire body. The trauma, the disbelief, the shock, and then your first instinct is to get help for your loved one. That is your first instinct. When you're calling 911, your instinct is to get help for your loved one. She never once said, please help, help, help. It's just, I don't know. He's cold. I got in bed. I was sleeping with my son in the other room. She distanced herself from it. And she's, do you know what happened? And then do you know how to do CPR? No. I mean, there's no one who's in real pain that is crying like that. I mean, it's just even keeled whine crying the entire 911 call. She's whine crying, and there's no disbelief. There's no, oh my God. There's no, please come and help me. What can I do? Nothing. It's unbelievable. And then I have a tape pulled up. Here's body cam footage. Okay, so what we're going to see in the body cam footage is, yes, she's in her pajamas, but she's looking down when the cops are there asking her what happened. She's not really looking at them. And this is somebody who is trying to keep herself together and is putting on an act. So let's take a look at some of this. She's still lying. She has lying. She's not looking at the top. She's not looking. And she's gonna wipe her eyes because she doesn't know tears. If you're not, she has to cover her face and her face because there are no tears. There are no tears. It's just unreal. I mean, there's no truth to this at all. Nothing that her tone has not changed since the 911 call. The cop is there. She has to cover her face because there are no tears. She has to look down. She can't make eye contact with the police officer because she's trying to make tears happen, but no tears are coming. Let me put myself back up here. She's trying to cry, but there's just no tears. There's no tears available for her to make happen. So Eric's sister comes to the house, and she's frantic. This is her brother that she loves so well. And I don't have footage of that police cam, but you actually see Eric's sister, her knees buckle and she falls to the ground. And again, if anybody has had an unexpected traumatic death of somebody, not 80, not something terminal or something that you expect, but somebody well before their time, he's 39 years old. If you've had somebody who has passed before their time, that's kind of what happened. Your knees give out. You see people, start sobbing from the inside of their diaphragm. They start the trauma and the weeping is a painful sob. It's not normal to just cry and whine cry. Your knees literally give out on you when you are so traumatized at the loss of a loved one, just all of a sudden. And the sister had the appropriate response. And again, everybody does things differently, but she didn't have a response. And actually, the prosecution found that hours after the unaliving of her husband, Kouri sent these memes to, and I'm not sure if she sent these to her boyfriend. Yes. And she'd been texting her boyfriend about money. So this is a meme from Dumb and Dumber where he's laying on the bed, covered in money, and he's crying and he's drying his tears with money. And then this one, it's just idiots everywhere. And then here's Trump saying, I'm really rich, because she was going to get $4 million. And apparently that same day, Kouri is talking to the sister about how she still has to close on this, $3 million house. And it's unbelievable that she's acting like the cry whining, and she's saying that her husband has passed away and she can't believe it's happened, but she's not giving any of the responses, the shock, the desperation. She's just even keeled, because, typically what will happen is while you're answering questions, you do get control of your emotions and you're thinking of details. You're trying to figure out what happened. Let me go through the steps. And you fall back on some sort of logic. If you're being questioned by the police, the crying doesn't continue. She's not even suggesting what could have happened. It's just, we just had a drink. She goes immediately to this Moscow Mule. And it's just, the whole thing is just really, really, really odd. So from testimony today, on day 3, we actually had an EMT come up. Let me pull my notes. So the interesting, I think the most powerful testimony was really day 1 with the sister, Kouri Richins, who's Eric's sister. But from today, I thought that some of the testimony that was really interesting was one of the EMT responders that came and actually worked on Eric had noticed that some of the things that did not make sense is that Eric was at the foot of the bed on the floor on a sheet. Okay. And typically, why that's odd is the EMT said that typically, if somebody has passed away and they're in bed, they're going to be, at least if they're on the floor, because somebody started CPR, they're going to be on the floor beside the bed where they've been sleeping. their body will be in a weird position, because if you're dragging someone heavy onto the floor to do CPR, or if they're still in bed, their body's usually in some sort of position. But he was on the floor at the foot of the bed, completely straight, like he had been positioned. There's also evidence that from movements of Kouri's phone that she got up at 3 a.m. She unlocked her phone and some things were done, and it wasn't for another 15 minutes before she called 911. So what they're saying is that Kouri knew he was unalived, wanted to make sure he was super unalived, and then called 911, and then did the weepy 911 call. And I think that she was working herself up to do the weepy, whining, crying. I don't know if she positioned the body or did anything with the body. Supposedly they were going to walk her through CPR, but his body was in a weird position. And when EMTs got there, his body was cold. And I think rigor mortis had already set in. And typically, if you just come across somebody and you think that they've just passed, they're not going to be that cold. And again, her excuse was that she had gone and slept with her son in his room and had just come back to bed, touched Eric, and found that he was unalived next to her. He was cold, and it just nothing from there on made any sense. And the sister, Katie, she went and talked to detectives right away, like that day. She's like, I know Kouri did it. I know Kouri did it. So the trial is interesting in the fact that the prosecution has a lot of circumstantial evidence that they have to get through. And while it might look like a slam dunk that obviously she did it, can they prove that she did it? And there's a big difference. It's like going back to the OJ trial. Everybody's like, okay, we know he did it. Can you now prove that he did it? And I have to say, the defense is doing their job. I think that she's got so far a good defense team, and I have to give them props, and we'll have to see how this goes. But it's really a sad situation. It looks pretty bad for Kouri right now, considering she was $4 million in debt. She was going to get $4 million. There was a prenup that she had signed that she was going to get this insurance money, but they had to be married at the time, and their marriage was failing. And it's just timing. A lot of it is circumstantial, but you just don't know. You don't know if it just takes one juror to come back and not be completely swayed. I mean, because this is somebody's life on the line, and you might get that one juror that says, I'm not 100% convinced, or the prosecution hasn't proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. So not exactly sure how this is going to go, but it is interesting to watch. Like I said, it looks pretty bad. Looks pretty bad on her part. But I'm glad I'm not on this jury, because you don't want to make a mistake. And usually the jury does get it right. So I don't know how much is going to be going on with this every day. I'm not sure that I'm going to be doing updates every day on the trial. I probably might just hit it every couple days if there's any updates on this. But I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. If there's a super juicy day, or we get to the defense, then I might jump on, a little bit more often. But I'm still really following the Nancy Guthrie case, mostly because I'm still praying for the family to get Nancy Guthrie back. And there was actually some movement today. Might go back on live tonight and just do a really quick update on some of the things that happened on that one today. But until then, let me just thank you so much for joining me, my little hungry crunchies. Again, this is Courtney C., your host. Remember to subscribe and like, and I will be back very soon with more live content. But until then, take care and crunchy, crunch, crunch, you guys. I'll see you soon.